Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Nurturing Astrology Podcast and Nurturing Astrology. And today I am back with my friend and intuitive Sarah Wilson. Hi, Sarah. Welcome back.
Hi, nice to see everybody.
So we decided to do something different and fun today. We typically jump on a call and we talk about the energies of a certain lunation or transit, and we get both of our sort of insights astrologically, intuitively on it, and we tend to support each other through life this way. And like we said in our original episode, that connection and friendship has been pivotal and so important for our individual growth journeys and also like navigating all the radical changes at large, right? So we decided we would jump on and we would talk a little bit about the upcoming Sag full moon and give you a little bit of a taste of what we do when we get together. And we'll talk about the astrology of that full moon and also talk about it from an intuitive place and kind of get an idea of how Sarah brings together her intuitive gifts and what she's learning with astrology, so that we all can kind of play with the idea of there's lots of different ways to interpret astrological energies and connections. And some of us seekers, we really get in and dive into the information and the chart and what's happening where and the connections. And other people can look at it and get these intuitive hits, or certain parts of the chart will jump out to Sarah when we're talking, and she brings this whole unique perspective on it, which then teaches the astrologer and me more information, ways to see something, which I think is really beneficial. Right? So how have you kind of benefited from this process, and how's astrology, working this way? Has it helped you hone your intuition and helped you hone your blend of astrology before we dive into the chart?
Yeah, I think for me, I've been working on a basis of really the intuition is my foundation, and that's what I've been doing. Bringing in the astrology, like I think I said in the last episode, it's really a reality check. It's a way of bringing in other information and allowing me to look at something, as you said, from a different perspective sometimes. It also highlights certain aspects of the chart will jump out to me. So sort of showing me, okay, this is where we're going to go with this. This is what the information that I have to bring to it. But more than anything, it can also be a really grounding experience. So if you have some type of intuitive information that comes into you, is being able to look at the chart and saying, where is that? Is that actually there? Is that actually happening? And I have to say that every time I can find it. So it does sort of give me a double check on some things that, if I get a hit and I'm not quite sure which direction it's going, I can check the chart to make sure that I'm on the right path.
Yeah, absolutely. Because first and foremost, I've always felt that astrology is validating. So we can be experiencing something, people come to an astrologer because something's going on in their life, and we tend to first and foremost validate that, and then we start to work with the energies. And for you, you can look at a chart, and now that you know astrology, you can start to blend those things, but things kind of jump out at you in a chart intuitively. And I've noticed that with you, you see something and intuitively get a hit about it and share it, and I'm like, oh, I get that. And that informs in a new way the seeker in me, and I'm learning more as an astrologer about the nuances and ways to interpret some of the energies. So I think that's one of the beautiful blends, and the way that we work together is cool, and why we're thinking, hey, let's record these and share them with people, because at the end we always feel like, wait a minute, that was really good stuff. I think others could benefit from that. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to dive into the Sag new moon that we have coming up on May 31st. And we're going to talk a little bit about the energies of that chart, and from both the seeker and the seer perspective. All right, so let's dive into the full moon in Sagittarius, which happens May 31st. It is at 9 degrees Sagittarius. The sun will be at 9 degrees Gemini, 55 minutes. So astrologically, we know that full moons bring things to full light, a full view of what we were building. We can see things, there's new perspectives, new awarenesses that come in. I think this is very much in alignment with the Gemini Sag polarity. So we're learning all of these different things and new ideas or awarenesses. And then with Sagittarius, it's like, okay, what do we do with this? What does it all mean? Where's it all going? What is the vision for all of these things coming in? And so we're at that place where maybe a lot of ideas and things have come in, especially with Uranus having just clicked in to Gemini, where it's like, ideas, ideas, ideas. what the heck do I do with that? Where is it taking me? What is my vision to, where am I going to use all these things? How are they going to go? And that's even the case with you and I. It's like this vision, this idea we have, it's like, where are we going to go with it? I think we're coming at this from a beginner's mind with this Gemini, and this experimenting, which is Gemini, and putting it out there in the world to see how it's received and how it might benefit others, since we tend to really benefit from it on a one-on-one basis, right? So it's an experimental vibe. What are your first thoughts about a Sag full moon and this Gemini Sag axis?
The first thing I'm looking at is the fact that we've got air and fire. So if you give oxygen to fire, things can take off. And so I think it really is, as you said, it's sort of a blowing up of ideas. And even before we got on this call, we were talking about, all the different things we want to talk about. So I do want to tell the audience that this is actually particularly an astrological video today. So for some of you, it may not be your cup of tea, or it might only be partially your cup of tea. But we have a lot more subjects and topics that are coming that are related to all sorts of different things in the metaphysical realm, and talking about nature, talking about humanity, and where we all are and where we're going. So I think there's a lot out there. But to get back to it, I think this moon really is, it is that. It's something that's going to sort of, I believe, light us up. I think a lot of us are coming to, it's summertime in the Northern Hemisphere. And it's that sort of feeling of getting out and, really sort of putting out more energy into the outside world, and we'll be able to get out with more people, do more things like that. And I think one of the things that actually pops out of the chart, and I have to say it, is I'm looking actually at the North and South node, which is really interesting. It's almost at a T-square with this. And we talked about it last time, the Virgo-Pisces axis. So really looking at that axis, which is going to be shifting very soon into Aquarius and Leo. So that's a very different energy. We're at the very end of this after about a year and a half. So really wrapping up that internal work that we've been doing, which is in water, which can be emotional and heavy and a lot of hard work, with the North Node being in Pisces. Things that are hidden, also the spiritual side of us. What are our real beliefs? And then looking also at the South Node, which is in Virgo. And that sort of day-to-day routine, we've all been sort of driven and making sure that we have, the day-to-day routine has to meet it. And the perfectionist side of us, how do we actually deal with those things in life that we want to be predictable and we want life to be the way we want it to be? And that just hasn't been the case. So it's been quite a big challenge. And I'm not saying all the challenges are over, but it's going to change. The energy is shifting. We're moving into a whole, different energy, moving into the Aquarian energy, which is going to be a lot more mental. It's going to be also in the 12th house. So we're still going to have that spiritual internal side for some of us who are on the East Coast. But it's going to be one of these where we're going to be coming from it from a much different perspective. It might not be quite as emotional. It might be sort of working out where do we go, as Dominique was saying, and how do we go forward? And then also looking at, the other side of it, which is Leo, which is a beautiful energy, and that is an energy of love. It's the energy, it has a fire energy with it as well. And so there's a lot of, I guess, air and fire coming up for us here. And this moon feels like it kicks that off. It sort of launches that. And I think we all need to be energized. It's sort of like we've been down in the muck.
Yeah, I think it's going to be much higher vibes. I love that you point out the Pisces Virgo axis, because it does bring this full moon into a mutable grand cross, right? And so mutability is changeability. We talk about that, a lot of things changing, letting go of a lot of stuff. That Virgo, like you said, that that Virgo perfectionism and having everything done a certain way or relied on. And that stuff we've had to let go of, this idea of having things a certain way or done in a certain way, and leaning into, I don't know, we're going to give it a try, or let's feel our way forward and see how this unfolds, and lean into more of the trust and the faith and the belief or what's coming for us. And so I love this idea of the mutable cross that's coming up. It's very strong in play. And also this idea that the North Node in Pisces and the Sag full moon are both ruled by Jupiter, which is in Cancer. right? So, and Cancer is where we've been for the last, year, and it's going to move into Leo this summer. So we're also in this place where, again, what is expanding within our emotional bodies, our nature, our families, our, lineage, the things that have been coming up for us spiritually and energetically that we've been working with on an internal level. And on the outside, it's going to be summer. It's time to like plan a trip or travel. If we're looking at it on that sort of mundane level, is maybe it's time to really start looking at what you want to do for the summer, right? And where you're going to travel. You're going to go see family. Are you wanting to take a trip? And also taking sort of the precautions and stuff that we have to take given the world we live in right now. I don't know if you've been noticing people talking about this and the stuff you listen to about traveling this summer and being very conscious and aware of the world. And I try not to get into fear astrology, you know what I mean? Fear-based astrology, but being prepared as the Virgo and getting your travel insurance, make sure your travel is also, insured, or you have changeable tickets or refundable, whatever that is, so you can feel a little bit safer about taking that trip or, enjoying your summer with those precautions. And speaking of that, the other energies in Mercury are the Mercury in Gemini, which this summer will move into Cancer, meet up with this, and retrograde. So another reason to keep those kinds of things in mind now. But also, full moons are celebration times. So it's time to celebrate some of the things that you've planted at the new moon in Taurus, and celebrate and see the vision a little bit more. Integrate what you've learned and the things like the responses and the things from what you're planting, those little things that are coming up. Celebrate the work you've put in and where you are now, and then start reflecting on what you want to integrate going forward. What ideas that have popped up with this new Uranus and Gemini actually can have legs, or actually how they're landing in your body and how you're receiving them, and you're ready to like build on a little bit more. Like, yeah, that one stuck around. That one got great reception. That one has been really coming on in my mind a lot. There's something there I want to work with. Or, you know what? This is really exciting and I don't have time for this anymore, unfortunately. So I'm realizing this doesn't work. Right? I got to let that go, and I'm going to lean more into this. And so that mutability is like, okay, you're at this pressure point of like, what's not working anymore and what do I want to lean into? I think the South Node and moving into Leo, like you said, and the North into Aquarius, all this internal work we've done. Now, what do we do with that? Who do we meet up with or start working with, or what groups we join? Where are people? We talked about that in our first episode. Where are people in our groups and our connections where this vision can really potentially come to life and bring more joy into our lives, which is also Leo, right?
And I think if you you're looking at also Venus is approaching
Yes.
Jupiter. That's an expansion of that
Mm-hmm.
sort of love, beauty, people getting together. Just there is that whole expansion that is happening.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to help sort of soothe us, I feel. It's been a pretty rough ride. I'm not saying it's over because we know it's not. But I think it's going to be a bit of a soothing time as we head into summer and people sort of take a breath before we really move into summer.
Yeah.
And I also see, that Chiron is sitting there in Aries, and that's really at the nth degree. So we are at the last degree of that Chiron dragging through sort of who we are, what we're about. And it's been a very fiery energy. It's been very hard to manage. Chiron being the wounded healer. It's got a lot of other interpretations as well. But, it is really a place where I think we're sort of really wrapping up, as Dominique said, that internal work that we've been doing in Pisces, but also the internal work we've been doing on ourselves, as individuals. And as it moves into a grounded earth sign, I think that might feel a little bit better. I think on the mundane side of things, that's going to shift probably what goes on in the outside world. But I also think that, it is going to take away sort of, I guess, some of our individual possibly insecurity or lack of safety because we're getting used to the fact that things are unpredictable. We're getting used to the unknown, and
Yes,
we have to start to accept that because there is really no other way. But I
absolutely.
think the soothing part of that is we do have these other planets coming in to help to sort of help us
Mhm.
with that process as we move into that next phase.
Absolutely. And you were speaking earlier, I think we were talking about this earlier with Mercury making a sextile to that Chiron. It's approaching that, and it is this beautiful time to new awarenesses come in that help the healing process, that help that closing out time that you're talking about. And it was funny you mentioned Chiron, and I was literally thinking that. It's great. And also the ruler of all that Aries is Mars, and Mars is now shifted into Taurus, which is really, everybody I think is taking a deep breath and a sigh of relief because of the immense fire energy we've been in and the almost volatility or anger and frustration with things, with it in Aries. It's like, okay, leaning into a more Venusian Mars, slowing down, settling the nervous system, starting to lean into the Venusian and the Venus and Cancer now of like, okay, let's do things that we can really feel that are nurturing and nourishing and healing and good. And I think that that's part of having great conversations and connections with people that validate, yeah, I've been doing a lot of work over the last years, a lot of healing. I've gone deep and I've cried and I've lost people, and jobs have changed, life has shifted, the world is changing so quickly, and it's dizzying. It's literally ungrounding and dizzying. So Mars like, okay, yeah, let me go sit out in my backyard and have my coffee in the morning now. Let me do my meditation. Let me clip my roses and smell my roses, and you know,
But But I will say, I'm going to interject here because
yeah.
we still have that Uranus and the Sun both sitting in Gemini, and that
Oh,
is
they'll be there.
technology and communications is not going to stop.
No,
So,
that's all the more reason why, right?
right,
This balance needs to happen.
right. So I think, having that Uranus and Gemini is going to, that's the new way. That is us getting overwhelmed by
Yep.
communications, getting overwhelmed by be it social media, whatever it is, or people who are into doom
Mm-hmm.
scrolling, hopefully not, but
Right.
and it's also part of that. The sun is who you are. And for me, that's also looking at, you know, okay, so if we can turn off the apparatus and sit in the yard, are we turning off in our mind? Are we turning off the doom
Yes.
scrolling internally? And I
So
think being
good.
cognizant about your mental process is one of the things that this moon is telling us. It's saying if you want balanced emotions, then you need to actually turn off the mental. And that means allowing and finding that place where you can actually shift what is going on in your head. Because if we're doom scrolling on our phones all the time, you turn off the
Or in
phone,
our
but then you
minds,
just
like you
lay there
said.
and now your head is doom scrolling the same scenario, be it a scenario internally with your family that's going on or some fear that you have from the outside world and the unpredictability that we're in. It doesn't, either of those
Yes.
matter. You don't have to qualify it, but it's just that constant cycling of being able to look at it and say, okay, how can I now manage this? And actually, what is the switch that I have to flip in my head to stop that? And it could be you just get moving. For me, having my moon in fire, it's get out and go for a
Yeah.
run. It shifts it, and I'm thinking about something else. Or it could be go out and walk your dog, or it could be get on your boat and sail. Whatever it is,
Yeah.
whatever you have means to be able to do. And I think that that's going to be really, really important is finding this place this summer is that breathing space, trying to find the
Mm.
breathing space and trying to find the breathing space also is to allow your head to shift.
Absolutely. Yes, I love that you brought that in. And what's really beautiful about it is what was coming to my mind as you were speaking was nature and how we talk about how intuitive gifts that come in when we quiet our minds, when we're in nature, the benefits of the Venusian, Mars, the benefits of being out taking a run in the park or being out in nature and doing these things that actually open us up to more of our intuition and our ability to feel and see and ground so that we can more navigate world and tech and the fast moving changes in a more grounded, calm, centered, focused way. And maybe it's time to shed some of the inbox and the people that you're, getting information, being really, really selective and discerning about what it is you choose to bring into your energy, to follow, to engage with, whether it's a podcast or, social media, how much. And I think it's absolutely true that it takes time for us to make a choice to get off the social or off the computer, away from a screen, sit in nature, and then give yourself time to quiet the inner running of the mind and the energies.
And I think for those people who are in the Southern Hemisphere, don't want to leave you out.
Yeah.
I think, looking at the Mars and in Taurus, I think it can be very grounding to go cozy. It's sort of cooler weather, and you might not be getting out quite as much, but it really is that time to sort of go in and be still and be cozy and have that cup of tea and curl up by a fire and just allow yourself to be. So however you choose to do it, whatever means. And I think a lot of that, I want to go back to what we talked about last time, which each chart is individual. So if someone says to you, in order to ground, you need to hug a tree, that's not the case necessarily for everybody. It might be if you're an earth sign or an air sign, but it might not be if you're a water sign or if you're a fire sign, especially, if you have your moon in fire or something like that. So knowing that each individual has their way of doing it, but this really speaks to having a bit of a breather as we move into the summer months. And I think as astrologers, because I'm always looking ahead, I think there's a lot coming this summer that's going to be, quite unpredictable. And I think that there's a lot coming this summer that astrologers have been waiting for decades, to find out how it's going to turn out. So it's not all over, but it's take this moment to sort of reset yourself. And I think it's also take that moment, like we've been talking about, to figure out how do you disconnect from that which is not serving you. And I think during, the school year, the work time, whatever it is, when we're not able to go on vacations and have a bit of time off, and not everybody has vacation in the summer, but a lot of us do. I think it really does wrap us into that. And so sort of trying to take a second and take yourself out of that would be
very good, very healthy. A deep breath, a moment out, I think get some perspective, a moment to get some perspective. And also the idea of like, we still have Saturn and in Aries, right? Just getting started, Neptune just getting started in Aries. Now both, answering to that Mars and Taurus is, okay, how can I practically put some of my things into my creative projects, structure them, work on them, or, explore how I can nurture and cultivate something that I'm really passionate about. And maybe you need to sit and, take some time to work with that or to explore that. But I do think this one's going to be a moment of a breath of fresh air and a moment to get some perspective. If you choose, there's choice here, right? If you choose, if you will, is to take a moment and do something that you can go inward and take some time with all of this, a new awareness and insight that's coming up, and choosing what you want to do with it and exploring the vision, and maybe not having to have answers yet, right? Because we're at a full moon time and there's a lot of stuff, and I don't think that we have to have all the answers. Right now with Gemini energy so strong, it's time to explore the possibilities, what's possible for the future, and what am I really feeling called to do to contribute to a better future I hope to see or be a part of on a collective scale, or even on a personal scale in my day-to-day life or my family or relationships. Everybody is going through this massive change together and experiencing it in very unique and different ways. And so I think it's about honoring that as well.
And if I look at I'm actually looking at the outer planets, which is what's sticking out to me now, or coming, sort of front and center, is really, if we look at it, having that Saturn there is quite a blessing, with Pluto where it is, and also looking at Uranus having just moved into Gemini, where we know technology, transportation, communications, all of that is innovation, right? AI, all of that is really taking off. And so how do we actually structure ourselves around that is what Saturn's allowing us to do. So these transits are very slow and they are outer planets, but there's also the creativity that we can allow ourselves and the adaptability and that slow transformation that Neptune also allows us, which is moving
Yeah.
slowly. So all of these planets are working together such that we should be able to handle this
Yeah.
transformation. It's just as they all just shifted into new signs very recently,
Yeah.
it's extremely new. It's a beginning for us as humanity. And I
Yeah.
think that gives me hope to look at that sort of
Hmm.
structure part of it and also look at the chance for us to as individuals innovate and move
Yeah.
forward. So I think that that's something that we should all keep in mind is there is some balance here. It's not that we've completely lost the steering wheel.
Yeah. I
It
like
might
that.
just feel like
The steering wheel, like again, bringing it back to that mutable grand cross is to be flexible, to be able to move and to be open, to new ideas, to new possibilities, and to allow yourself to go with the flow of that and root in and ground into the things that are really meaningful in your life, that really fulfill or excite you, and what is positive. I do, though, it's a choice what we focus on, the positive or the very negative, fearful things that are happening. And the more we can live in hope and possibility, I think the more we can counterbalance and help each other work through the reality of the fears and that come up every day, or what's happening in the collective that can send us spinning off or scrolling or wanting to check out. So I think it's a conscious choice to use this energy in a mindful way, given all of the energies. I love this, and I love this idea. Hopefully, it's brought some things for everyone to think about as we approach the Sag full moon. We'd love to know your thoughts. And do you have any other things that you really want to share that you see, Sarah, or intuitively that you want to offer before we wrap up?
no, I think we've covered a lot. And honestly, I just hope that we see you here again and we're really grateful for you.
Absolutely. This is a time of exchanging information and ideas. And so, if what we're doing brings some, support in a way that you'd like more, we certainly want to know that that helps us produce and bring more information that actually can serve, which is what we want to do.
And I think, yeah, I just wish everybody a beautiful full moon. I hope that some of the seeds that you've planted in previous
Mm.
new moons
Yeah.
start coming to fruition and that people can start to, yeah, really enjoy this next little step where we get a little bit of a breath.
Absolutely. Yeah. Deep breaths, everybody, and have a beautiful Sag full moon.
Keep seeking and keep seeing
That's
and
right.
keep listening, and we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks.
Bye.